Alright, this video is gonna be more more nice, more optimistic. And I just wanna talk about these two Sonic games because people often talk about what is their most favorite Sonic game, at least either modern 3D game or 2D game. But I haven't seen really much talk about which one is the worst, is the least favorite. Also about the classic ones, because back when Sonic CD wasn't really as easily available as it is now on modern devices, it kind of had a cult following of people claiming it was the best classic Sonic game, which I never understood, because Sonic CD for me was the last game I did play in terms of the classic series, the classic games. It was the last one I played in chronologically. I did play Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and then Sonic and Knuckles, and then I combined Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And then, only later on, I did play Sonic CD, which is a kind of a funny story, because I did play Sonic CD in '96 for the first time, when I bought my first PC. I went there in the PC store and they had Sonic CD on the PC version. And so I did buy it, and that was my first PC game I played. It was Sonic CD, because I never owned a Sega CD. So I did play it in '96, way after I did play the other ones. So I mean, yeah, Sonic CD had this cult following about. I guess it was kind of elitism, where people were claiming, yeah, it was the best, because I guess not many people had played it, so they could say this because they felt special in that sense. But honestly, I always thought Sonic CD was okay. It was nothing special, honestly. It was definitely not better than even Sonic 2, let alone 3 and Knuckles. But yeah, this is just a small introduction to the video. So like I was saying, you rarely see comparisons between to establish which is the worst. I mean, the worst is not really intended in a bad way, because I mean the classic Sonic games are all pretty decent. Some are more decent, some are a bit less, but they're all decent overall. So yeah, which is worse between Sonic 1 and Sonic CD? I mean, if you go and try to compare them, structure-wise, the most important thing you have to consider is the level design. The level design in Sonic 1 is a mixed bag, because Sonic 1 alternates zones where you can go relatively fast to zones where you kind of have to do heavy platforming, so you can't really go that much fast. So I mean, Green Hill Zone allows you to go relatively fast, even though if I remember correctly, some versions of Sonic 1 had a speed cap. But even if you don't take into consideration that, it was Sonic 1 was like I said, hit and miss. So Sonic, for example, Green Hill, it's a very easy and fast-paced zone, while Labyrinth Zone, for example, instead is pretty slow-paced. It's very methodical. You actually have to be very patient in Labyrinth Zone, or else you risk dying quite a lot to drowning. And so, for example, then there is Starlight Zone, which is another relatively fast-paced zone, and then there's Scrub Brain, which is also kind of a mess, because it's very full of obstacles. So you have to be, unless you know the zone very well, you have to be a bit patient, with your jumps and timings. Sonic CD instead, a lot of its zones feel a bit gimmicky. For example, the whole Collision Chaos feels like a very big gimmick, where you have pinballs scattered all over the levels, which make it, I don't know, it feels like the level exploration is not very organic and is mostly tied to these pinball machines, because you can only go up through them in most of the cases, which seems like to be a recurring trend for Sonic CD levels. For example, Walkie Workbench is my least favorite level in Sonic CD. It's a constant jumping because the floor is will jump, basically bounce you off. So you have to remain, if you want to explore, you have to remain confined to the upper levels, because otherwise you'll be jumping non-stop, which is not very productive when you're trying to explore. Also, Starlight Speedway is another zone where, yeah, you go very fast. I don't know, sometimes it feels like you really don't know where the fuck you're going. It can be very confusing at times. Some zones can be very confusing at times. So the level design in Sonic CD is very chaotic. Can be very chaotic. You can get lost, definitely. If you don't know the zones, you can get lost. Exploration is a very big point in Sonic CD. The levels are definitely more open-ended than Sonic 1, which are more similar in that sense to Sonic 2, for example. They have a bottom path, a mid path, and an upper path in Sonic 1, while in Sonic CD they're kind of all over the place. Because I think they did this because exploration was a big point with Sonic CD, in the sense that you had to find the robot machines, the robot generators in the past to create a good future for the zones. I guess that was the whole point for the exploration. And also because, I mean, yeah, it allows, when you have bigger levels, it allows you to reach faster speeds, to time travel more easily. You can put more spots in which you can farm speed to time travel. So, I mean, if I have to be honest, I personally prefer Sonic 1 level design because it's more cohesive. It's easier to learn the zones. I can understand what the fuck I'm doing, where the fuck I'm going, even if I haven't played the game in ages. While with Sonic CD, it's a little bit more complicated, at least for me. Most of the time, I don't know where I'm going in Sonic CD. So that's why, when it comes to if I want to get the good ending, which I almost always want to do in a Sonic game, I'll just go for the time stones in Sonic CD. And that's it. I won't bother finding the robot generators, because in most zones the level design is all over the place. Now, another point of contention can be the special stages. Now, I have to be like very blunt. I think the special stages in Sonic 1 are pretty boring and lame, to say the least. I actually think they are the worst special stages in the franchise. The ones in Sonic CD are definitely more fun to me. Because it also feels like you have more control over your character in Sonic CD. While in Sonic 1, it feels like you're more under. I mean, it's not like it feels. It is. You are under the influence of the physics of the special stage itself with the wall rotation thing. Yeah, you can alter it a little bit by making it rotate counterclockwise and vice versa if you push the R button. But still, I don't like them. I just think that the special stages in Sonic CD are just more gameplay based, more interactive, and makes them superior to me. I actually think the special stages in Sonic CD are probably top 1 or top 2 best special stages in the classic franchise. So here's that, and a win for Sonic CD. The music, I mean, in the classic Sonic games, the the themes of the levels are all good, for the most part. I can't really think of a bad zone theme in a classic Sonic game. So I'll just say that Sonic CD has just a bigger soundtrack. So I would say that is better overall, because it also has 2 soundtracks. So there's plenty of choice for everybody. Some people like the American soundtrack, some people like the Japanese soundtrack. I personally like a mix of them. For example, for the intro music, I like the Japanese intro, while for the ending music, I like the American ending theme. And so on. It depends all on the zone. Some zones I prefer the Japanese soundtracks, others the American. While Sonic 1, yeah, it still has a good soundtrack, but it is not as varied as the one in Sonic CD, which, I mean, it has 2 soundtracks, so it kind of makes sense. But I mean, the one in Sonic 1 is definitely not bad at all, but Sonic CD takes the cake for me in this sense. Also because, I mean, it has CD level quality, so yeah, it's definitely superior in that sense as well, in terms of quality, in terms of raw audio quality. Now I want to talk a little bit about the themes of the zones, so like the aesthetics, the whole gimmick of the zone per se, and you can tell some of the zones in CD are a little derivative from Sonic 1, for example. Of course, Palm Tree Panic is clearly inspired by Green Hill, and the Tidal Tempest is clearly inspired by Labyrinth Zone. What else? What's the name of the last zone? Metallic Madness is clearly inspired by Brain Scratch. So in this sense, Sonic 1 and Sonic CD feel a little bit similar. Also because the Sonic sprite is the same. That also contributes to that. But overall, I think the levels are more colorful in Sonic CD for sure. But the overall themes are more or less very equivalent, because, like I said, 3 zones share a lot of similarities in their themes and their design. So I would say in this sense they pretty much are equivalent, with a slight edge for Sonic CD in Sonic CD's favor due to the more colors on screen, also thanks to the Sega CD hardware, which never hurts. Now, as for the boss fights, honestly in Sonic CD are kind of shit, honestly, because that's how I think they are. I only saved the Sonic versus Metal Sonic race, and I guess also the Tidal Tempest boss can be okay, but most of the other ones are just very, very gimmicky. The last boss is a fucking joke. You can just cheese it, and it also doesn't really feel like a final boss. it doesn't feel that threatening. So the bosses are definitely one of Sonic CD's biggest downsides. Sonic 1, I think, has way better bosses in this sense. They are more fun also to fight. They are actual boss fights and not just haha, look at this funny thing that Robotnik has made, has created to troll you. Yeah, no, thank you. Sonic 1 has better boss fights. I don't think it's even a contest. So, I mean, to conclude, what to say? I think they are both, overall, they are both decent games. Of course, they are far from the best classic Sonic games. They both have their strengths and weaknesses. I don't really have a favorite per se, but I really like Sonic CD's soundtrack and the concept of how Sonic is portrayed, especially in the intro. That's the best Sonic depiction, in my opinion, ever. But I'm not really a fan of the level design. It's too chaotic at times. While Sonic 1 is more straightforward. So I mean, even though in some zones you have to play a little bit slow, you have to really slow down, which is not bad if you have to platform carefully. But I don't think a zone like Labyrinth Zone really fits a game like Sonic. Sonic 1 will probably be a much better game if you switched Labyrinth Zone with something else. And also, I want to mention, in terms of Sonic 1, the Master System version is actually not that bad. Yes, it doesn't have the physics that the Mega Drive version has, but I have to say I like a few things more on the Master System version. For example, I like that in the final area of the game, they don't recycle for the third time in Scrap Brain. For the third act of Scrap Brain, they don't recycle the Labyrinth Zone assets. Yeah, I know, they give you a low reason as to why Scrap Brain Act 3 is like it's the same thing as Labyrinth Zone, but I just think it's lame. In the Master System version, instead, they actually have a new zone. I think it's called Sky Fortress. Yeah, it's basically Robotnik's fortress, and I think it's much cooler. It feels more epic than just Labyrinth Zone again. So I actually wish Sonic 1. If Sonic 1 had no Labyrinth Zone and no recycled Labyrinth Zone in Scrap Brain, I think it would be a much better game, honestly. Yeah. But like I said, there's no definitive winner. I guess it just comes to personal preference. So I like slightly more. I think Sonic 1 is slightly more replayable than Sonic CD, but there is not that much of a difference. But yeah, as usual, let me know your thoughts, because I'm curious. And I'll catch you in the next video. Bye bye!